having me.
It's World AIDS Day tomorrow. We're a country that's been through a lot in terms of the stigma around HIV/AIDS, various communities dealing with that stigma in various ways. On this World AIDS Day 2018, what is your sense of how far we've come?
My sense is that we are in a country which is developing. There is so much progress if we look where we come from in regard to HIV and AIDS, in regard to stigma attached to HIV and AIDS. However, as people living with HIV, we feel that there is a huge gap. If we look back 20 years ago, when we stood up as people living with HIV and then to fight the stigma and discrimination of people living with HIV, we felt 20 years later, the space of HIV positive people, it seems to be not well recognized. People living with HIV are being swallowed by the system that exists in this country in terms of HIV management. Also, what we have learned is that the study has confirmed that the stigma has changed the form. We've got a different stigma in our society. I usually call there is a professional stigma that exists.
What do you mean by that?
In a sense that people are not stigmatized as used to be. 20 years ago, you'll be chased away from your family. People will call you by names. In our days, we've got so many people who are living openly in our families, in our communities. However, when we stood up, when we spoke as people live with HIV, around the world, we adopted what is called greater involvement of people living with HIV. The meaningful involvement of people living with HIV. When we speak of stigma in our days, we see as isolation of people living with HIV to be involved in issues that speak to know your status, issues of prevention, issues of support, issues of resources, the implementation of programs that speak to the better life of people living with HIV. People living with HIV are no longer consulted as used to be. And then we feel that there is that gap that needs to be adjusted. We need to be stronger than as we used to. And then we feel that we need to raise a voice as people living with HIV. We take that as our responsibility as people living with HIV, that we need to stand up. We cannot allow that in our country we still see the rise of HIV. I come from KZN, and then KZN represents the whole South Africa in terms of states. You know, people live with HIV, and then it's so high. The gender-based violence, it's also linked to HIV and AIDS. And then people who are living with HIV in our days, some of them, they are scared to talk openly about HIV. There's a stigma to disclose HIV status in intimate relationships. Yeah. Hence, my organization, which is Life Foundation and Development, under the banner Thando Lethu, which is a program that I run with my wife to speak about love in our relationship, which we encourage couples to learn to talk about HIV, where we encourage couples to encourage one another, work together to the health facility to know their HIV status. Also, it needs to go beyond in terms of treatment. We are engaged on 1990 goal, which speak to know your status, which speak to take your medication, which speak to suppress the viral load. We need to make sure that people who are at a grassroots level, they are fully involved and understand the concept, what it means to know your status. As we celebrate tomorrow, our theme this year, 2018, it goes back to where we started, to say, know your status.
So as we count down to tomorrow, you talk about those various gaps that there still are, but we have made strides as a country in fighting and educating around issues regarding HIV/AIDS. But are you saying that those strides and those improvements that we have made have perhaps made us, and perhaps governments as well, complacent?
It simply means that we cannot relax because of the changes that we've made.
The positive changes
exactly.
that we've made.
The picture of HIV in our community keeps changing. We need to always revisit. The reality is that in our country, we speak of UTT, universally test and treat, and many people are encouraged to take treatment immediately when they are diagnosed with HIV. But what we have learned is that there is so much people who are defaulting on medication, and then we need to address that.
What is behind that? What have you found in your research that is behind that?
It means that we are not putting more effort on individual support, individual counseling. We cannot expect people immediately, by knowing their status, then you put them on treatment. Remember, treatment is a lifetime commitment. As much as we recommend and then we commend the status of this country, that when you are living with HIV, you go to start the medication. At the same time, what we are saying is that we need the quality of the support.
Yeah.
People, when
emotional support,
also the more education that need to be installed around treatment also, and to make sure that people do not default. And then we are seeing young people also who are diagnosed with HIV with a lack of understanding what it means to take medication. And then they are also put on medication. And then also we are seeing in this era, we are seeing young people as well who are coming out, who were born with HIV. And then some of them, they are taking medication without being aware that they are taking medication which is related to HIV. So those are the issues that we need to address in terms of moving forward as to how do we make sure that we manage and we control the issue of HIV. But it's an issue that call all of us to be involved. People live with HIV, the entire civil society, government, donors, to be involved. And then the most important thing is to understand the people who are infected and affected with HIV.
Yeah, absolutely. We still do have a very long way to go. Thanks very much for your time and for coming into studio.